I'm 16 years old, and I attend North Forsyth High School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My first piece that I will be presenting is from Lloyd, a written play by Mr. Nathan Ross Freeman. Memory? Remember what? Oh, what you want, right? Some black revolution? Studying to the weird hours of the night? You know, I read a book just to let me know that the world is such a beautiful place to live, but some newspaper, a newspaper, told me that it was all a lie. And when everybody is through getting caught in their lives, there ain't nothing left to do but for every man in this world to go to war. You're all liars. You know, this world is a hoax. Memory? Remember what? Remember this. There ain't nothing in this world worth saving. I guess Billy was right. It's like he always said, ain't no difference than between he and me. Really. Representing my second piece that I have written from the Winston-Salem Youth Arts Institute called No Way Out. I'm in a small room with 4 walls and 2 ceiling fans. Yeah, and there's this table and it's filled with food. And I hear a loud knock on the door. So I tell the ballpoint medium doorway to let them in. It's my crazy family. And I greet them with my compassionate love. And I begin to tell them about the engagement that is getting ready to happen. And I finish. And I begin to prepare myself for those people waiting in that crowded arena. So as the man and his co-workers escort me to that stage, I stand there and reminisce on what's getting ready to happen.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Alexander, Artistic Director of North Carolina Black Repertory Company, and I'd like to welcome you to our final installment of the Holy Ground Artist Spotlight Series, one of the many programming options NC Black Rep has been producing during the COVID-19 pandemic. To support the theater and to find out about upcoming events, please visit ncblackrep.org or click on the link at the top of the comments sections. If you're wondering why I'm fighting back a laugh or a smile right now, it's because of our guest this evening. Our guest is a homegrown talent, Mr. Jimmie JJ Jeter, and I am so happy because this is the story of a young man who you just saw started in the living room of his parents' house and ended up on the Broadway stage in the biggest musical in the world, the title role in Hamilton. So this is I hope there are a lot of young actors watching. I hope a proud mother's watching. I hope proud supporters are watching, because this is like a dream come true. He's a wonderful young man. So joining me now, Mr. Jimmie JJ Jeter.
Hi.
There he is.
What's going on?
Thank you so much for joining us. First question, I hope she didn't tell you because I wasn't on the call earlier. Did you know we were gonna play that?
Yo, what's funny is I was texting my mom. I was like, where did they find this video? Oh my God, I hadn't seen that. And I forgot that even happened. That's wild if you found that.
What makes that piece even more special is the first monologue you did is written by another local talent, Mr. Nathan Ross Freeman, who I'm sure played a huge role on you when you were younger. Great writer.
Yeah, no, yeah. That was also interesting too. Yeah, watching that, I was like, oh my God, I forgot that Nathan showed me this play that he wrote whenever I was auditioning for the high school program that I ended up going to at North Carolina School of the Arts. And yeah, man, I was like, oh my God, I forgot that happened. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild. I'm still kind of like.
What did you do it for? What did you record it for? What were you using it for?
I don't even remember, to be honest. I want to say it had to be maybe for some audition for something. I don't even know if it was for the School of the Arts, because you go in to audition for those things, but I don't even know, man. Maybe I just put it up to be, to just share it with people or something on YouTube back in the day. I'm not even really sure.
Well, JJ, you should know, once it's out there, it never dies. It never goes away.
Right. Right. We're in that new age now. For sure, man.
So I know there are a lot of people watching right now who are very proud of everything you've accomplished. I've only gotten to really know you really over the past 6 months to a year, but I've heard your name since I've been here.
Man.
JJ, he's in New York, he's in Chicago. I was my barber for a while, so I heard all the family stories, and
that's right.
Everyone is so proud of you,
man.
And you're very early in your journey. I mean, you've made huge strides very quickly. How did it all start? Where did this love of acting begin? Yeah,
so I love sort of reinvestigating this every time, any opportunity I get to reinvestigate this. I love that question. It started for me in church, actually. I grew up in a church called Holy Trinity Full Gospel Baptist Church from when I was a very young boy up until about my beginning of my teenage years. And that was sort of my first bug, I'll say, for performing in any way. I was, we were always at church, I want to say about 6 days out of the week, if not 5 days out of the week. You know how that goes. And, we were in every choir. We danced on the dance team. Our church had like a really big dance team presence in the city, and we were all a part of that. We were just basically anywhere where there was sort of entertainment for the church. The church plays. We were doing those things. So that's really where it started for me. And then from there, I ended up, I told my mom one day, I was like, look, I think I want to like act or something. My mom and dad took me to a play. It was sort of a summer enrichment play that the Forsyth County Theater program puts together every summer with all their high school students. And they were doing Annie one year. And I believe the character is Mrs. Hannigan. Whoever was playing Mrs. Hannigan was given the performance of her life. And I remember being like, I like that. And I remember telling my mom on the way home, I was like, yo, I think I want to do something like that. And she went to work, I want to say the next day, if not a couple of days later. And she found an audition that was happening with the Community Theater of Greensboro. And then from there, it just kind of took off. So my roots started in church for sure.
What was the first production? What was your first production outside of church? Your first time on stage outside of church?
My first time on stage, oh man, I want to say it's interesting. I don't know if you would say this was a stage production, but my first sort of paid job to entertain people was the Community Theater of Greensboro. Had a partnership with the Friendly Shopping Center. They were building what is now the new Friendly Shopping Center. And they hired the Community of Greensboro to bring in actors to perform every week of the month that they were sort of going to do this sort of grand or leading up to the grand opening of the new facility. And so that was my first job. And every week, we'd come in and we'd learn a dance. And what they did, they called it Dancing Through the Decades. And so every week was a different decade. I believe starting from the 50s up into the present, or maybe the 60s up into the present. And we were assigned a solo or a duet every week. And so we would come in, we'd show them our duet from that decade. They'd show us a dance, and we'd have to sort of come in and we'd have to costume ourselves and, you know, according to that decade. And we'd sort of put the performance together week by week. But that was sort of my first performance, or sort of paid performance in entertaining people. But then after that, Mitchell Summers, who's the artistic director for CTG, invited me to audition for The Wizard of Oz, which is a production they do every Christmas, or around Christmas time. And so that was then, I guess, sort of my first stage production.
I mean, both of those, I mean, that's an actor. I mean, that's an actor's work. That's some training there, only something every week. So that definitely counts. Did you know, like, was it something, oh, this is fun? Or early on, did it dawn on you, this is fun, but this is something I want to take beyond, you know, this is something I want to do?
It sort of happened. I guess it kept revealing itself, the seriousness and the depth of, you know, this work that I would soon come to know, you know, about the craft of being an actor. It sort of slowly started to reveal itself over time. I think it started out as like, wait, so this thing that I used to get in trouble for in school, right? I could get paid to do that? That's wild. And people will clap and people will applaud and people will watch. I think that was sort of my first sort of like, oh my God, this is really cool. And, you know, people are starting to like what I do. That's kind of, okay, cool. That's kind of nice. And I think, you know, as, you know, sort of my surroundings change, you know, going from, you know, performing outside in a parking lot, you know, for about a month, and then stepping onto a stage where, I mean, I think that theater seats about something close to 2,000 people, I think. I mean, it's a huge theater, right? I might be off on that, but it felt like that, you know, as a kid. But just sort of when that environment shifted, I know that from there, my interests changed, and starting to be around kids. You know, I didn't grow up around theater kids up until that moment. And so even just being around those kids and seeing their love for it, they know all these musicals, they know, you know, they've done a bunch of plays, they are taking dance classes, tap classes, all these things. It sort of started to pique my interest in terms of thinking about, oh, okay, cool. I think I have to sort of find a way that I can maneuver through all of this. And and so I guess my answer to that is slowly it started to reveal itself over time.
Never any nerves, never nerves.
Oh, to this day, man, I'll have nerves, but it always happens. I kid you not. Like to this day, it'll happen right before I have to go on. And I don't know what happens, but I think, well, I do know what happens. Now I can sort of describe what happens, but it goes away and leaves room for the work to be done. But yeah, even from a young age, man, I love being in front of people, you know. Again, I would get in trouble at school for just like, you know, getting in front of the class and doing something, you know, crazy, you know. So I'd always sort of had a knack for it.
The nerves should never go away. They kind of fuel what happens when you hit the stage. Those,
absolutely.
You know how to control them.
Right. I mean, I'm actually nervous for the day that the nerves don't come. Those are the moments that make me really, I'm like, whoa, why am I not? Okay, maybe I'm not doing something right, you know.
So I know for us at NC Black Rep, we're very proud of you and what you've accomplished. And one of the reasons is you were a member of the inaugural teen theater ensemble, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? I didn't even know that.
This is according to Sadrina. Sadrina mentioned that to me.
Oh,
Sadrina, who was also in the class with me. Yeah.
We started together. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
How did that get, and for those of you who don't know, our teen theater ensemble is NC Black's training program for kids 13 to 19. We do a 12-week training session followed by a showcase production. So how did you get involved with TTE?
Oh my God. So I don't know exactly what led to, you know, I will say my mom found it. My mom she always leads the charge. She's always, you know, guiding us in the direction that we feel that we want to go in. Always sort of supporting us and pushing us. But I want to say she found out about the Black Rep, and about the teen theater ensemble auditions. And I remember from there, we had to show up one Saturday at the library downtown, and that's the first time I met, Mabel Robinson, and the rest was history.
You mentioned your mom. I actually met your mom in, I want to say 2010, which is a great story. I didn't remember the story, but you shared the story with me when we connected earlier this year. And I wanted you to share that story with our audience.
I love the story. So you brought, I think it was the first time you came, I forget what play you brought to our city what was that play?
The High Priestess of Dark Alley.
The High Priestess of Dark Alley. There it is. And it was the talk of it was talk of the town. Everybody was like, I gotta go see this play. And my mom, and I believe my sister, went to see the play. And after the play, or I don't know when she met you, but she met you, and she gets really excited. She gets in her high voice, like, oh my God. She gets really excited. And she I guess told you that, she had a son that was doing some acting or wanted to, get into the business. And you told her some encouraging words, and you ended up writing on a playbill, keep going, brother. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you just wrote down some encouraging words. And we have that playbill here in the house somewhere. We just had to move some stuff around. I still have to find it. But we ended up keeping it. And I remember that being like, oh my God, this guy's really, really cool. And it was sort of really cool to have that moment at a young age, man. I would have been in the 10th grade at that point.
I can't hear that story enough. I love every time you share that story. When you told me, I do remember your mom coming up.
Yeah.
I think your mom has that energy where I think I knew, like, oh, I need to sign this. This man has somebody in his corner. He's going places.
That's my mama, man. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a wonderful story when you told me, I think you shared the story with me, and I was seeing you in Hamilton like the next week. So it just blew my mind. And I think it means more to me now. Like, it's a story I tell now.
Man, it's wild.
But you mentioned, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's wild how full circle life can be,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But you mentioned Miss Mabel Robinson, who started TTE, being, what's it like? Because you walked in, I mean, talk about being blessed. You walked in to learn from the best of the best.
The
best. A woman with a resume.
Woo! Yeah.
So what was that like?
I mean, are there really words, right? Like I don't even know if I've truly been invented yet to really describe what, the even now, the effects of the seeds that she was dropping on all of us at that time. I mean, I remember, Miss Mabel has this presence, right? That I remember the day that we walked, because in the library downtown, once you go in, you have to walk all the way to the back, at least in the old library. You have to walk all the way to the back, and you have to go to this corridor, and then you have to walk past the kids section, and then you go into this theater. And like, maybe, it wasn't incredibly lit, but it was a little lit. And Miss Mabel's in there, and she's like sort of sitting on the edge of the stage. She's a tiny little woman, and it's about, 12 of us and our parents in there. And she spoke, and she had this presence, and she spoke with this elegance, this sort of eloquence. And I remember just knowing from a young age that this woman had the keys to unlock whatever it was that I was searching for in terms of this, whatever would be that phase of my life. Every week, every Saturday when we would meet and we would have our rehearsals, I mean, it was a constant, there was never a moment where we weren't learning something, right? We were always, I mean, she taught us, to use every opportunity to work, use every opportunity to keep asking questions. She said this thing, she basically like remixed that whole, fake it till you make it thing. I can't remember verbatim what it was, but she would always say this phrase that basically was like, even if you, like, she would teach us dance. A lot of us didn't have dance training. She would teach us how to, awareness of our bodies, vocal things, acting things. And she would say, yes, you're not a trained dancer, you're not a trained actor, but you have to work as though you already are. And it will, everything will fall into place. And she was dropping that like the second week, and, she's bringing in her friends in the industry that were just like, these guys in the theater industry and in the dance community, her friends, and they're coming in and they're just like dropping these dimes too. And she's bringing in actors from School of the Arts and, not just actors, but the Black actors from that school to work with us. And that's only like a small glimpse.
I'm curious.
Of what that was. Yeah.
Did you know who she was and what she had done when you walked in the room?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I had to be like 13, maybe like maybe 12, 13, 14. And I had no idea to look up, who this woman was. I had no idea that she was even going to be there. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but the older I got, and obviously the more I, started to become more a part of the theater community, I did my research, and I remember looking her up, and I had this oh snap moment, where everything sort of, I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. I mean, there are still moments now, I went to 2 years ago, I went to the African American History Museum in DC. And there are like musicals that Miss Mabel was in that are in that museum, right? And it's like, and I mean, and movies that she's been a part of that are in that museum, So to this day, I'll still have moments where I'm like, oh my God, like this woman is incredible, and is truly, a force. Yeah.
I asked that question because I always tell younger actors, kids, know who you're walking, know about the person you're walking into the room. Because a lot of us, and I'm guilty of it too, growing up, it's like you walk in and you don't realize who you're talking to. So there's today with the internet, Google them. It takes a second.
Absolutely.
But know who's in that room. When you're walking into a room with someone, know who's in that room. We were actually lucky enough, we were in New York earlier this year, and I was so excited to have you be a part of the Holy Ground documentary, which we were shooting in New York. And I'd love to take a look at a clip from your interview. You came out on one of your very small breaks from Hamilton and shot this interview talking about Miss Mabel. So let's check that out.
Go. I'm not sure how exactly we found Black Rep, but Mabel Robinson, who started the Teen Theater Ensemble, was sort of having their second round of auditions, and we heard about it. And it was happening at the library downtown, in the theater area. And I remember we went, and I remember sort of being like, I don't really know what this is. I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. But I remember Mabel, it was Mabel in a room full of Black kids who looked just like me, some I knew from school, and she took us through these acting exercises and dancing exercises and group exercises and individual exercises, and I just remember being like, this is wild. I've never done anything like this before, and I've never had somebody that looked like Mabel guide me in this way, or sort of ask me to tap into this this part of myself, which would later be very, very will become a profound experience for
me. Now, you had talked about Miss Mabel, but I wanted to play that video to ask, how important was it that it was someone who looked like you? Because acting is a very personal, very, you're sharing of yourself. How important was it to have someone, like you said, who looked like you, asking you to take this journey? It's so, outside of the fact that it's so important, I think
even before I came into consciousness about really why it is important to have someone that looks like you sort of guide you. I think it allowed me, it was sort of the first time I didn't have to be, I didn't have to put on anything, right? You know, and it seemed that she was asking me for the first time at a very young age to tap into myself, right? To not play a version of myself, just to simply move through the space, you know, given whatever task she asked us to do. And she was able to sort of, I don't know, she had this way of like pinpointing the thing that you needed specifically. It was different for all of us. I mean, there was like, at one point, there's like 20 kids in a room, and then there's sometimes there's like 4 of us, right? She felt both motherly. She also felt like a teacher, and she sometimes felt like a friend or like a big sis. You know, she put on these multiple hats, but it always felt like it was a family member of mine, you know, through all of that, you know, and it sort of diluted this gulf, you know, that normally happens when you have an instructor and an actor, right? Especially if that instructor is just of a different, you know, comes from a different place than you do. It may look different than how you look. I didn't have to worry about a lot. I could just solely be an artist and like figure out, you know, what I was doing. And I knew that she would see me. And so I think that is why I think it was so important to have her guide us the way she did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it didn't hurt that she was a legend. You know, all those other bonuses plus you got a legend.
Not at all. Not at all. It's such like, I love bragging about it now. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, Mabel Robinson taught me everything I know. You know, it's like, they're like, who's Mabel? I'm like, Google her. Google her. Absolutely.
Well, we got a little surprise for you. Miss Robinson has graciously agreed to join us tonight, so I'd like to bring on Miss Mabel Robinson.
Okay, what am I doing? What am I doing here? Am I?
There you are.
Am I here? I'm here.
Hey, Miss Mabel.
How are you, my darling?
I'm so good. I'm better now that I'm seeing you.
I'm so good now that I'm seeing you.
You doing all right?
You know, it's always amazing to how wonderful I always feel when I see the young folk.
Yes.
The young folk that really is persistent and make it and don't give up. Yeah. I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
I'm so proud. I was proud of you when you graduated from Juilliard. And then when you went on and on and on and not necessarily looking for the easy way out. I mean, Chicago is deadly to have. I mean, but still, you got the opportunity to do things, to learn things, and that whole thing about learn all the roles.
All the roles.
That's it. Learn all the roles.
All of them. Yes. Yes.
Oh boy. So how are you?
I'm good.
You faring?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to, you know, I'm home back in Winston now.
I know.
Yes. So I'm here. You know, I'm here with my family. You know, my sister just, she had a baby last year.
Listen, you know, I met the baby. You know, when I came to see you, there was you had some kind of.
Oh, yes. At that fundraiser.
I think Nathan was introducing you, but anyway, someone was having a function for you. And you were playing, and I don't think that you knew I was coming. And of course, you know who I sat next to. I sat next to your sister.
Oh, and great.
The baby was there. I said, oh, you know, my heart was just.
Oh my God.
Just, oh yeah, but you look wonderful.
You as well.
Miss Robinson.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry,
you share
Jackie.
with us? Oh, no.
We're just talking. Lord.
Can
you know how
share
that
with
is.
us first? Was JJ in the inaugural class, and what was he like?
You know,
walking in.
I think I think you were in this. You might have been in the second. Now, if as Sadrina tells you, it's the inaugural class.
Yeah, Sadrina said it first.
Then if she says it, it's there. I mean, that's where he was. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because he was really very much tiptoeing on around, kind of not really taking a chance, you know. And I said, no, you have to be very different than what you think you are, you know what I mean? But I, you know, to see him grow right in front of my eyes, I said, okay, this is one you don't have to worry about. And he listens and he retains it and he tries it and comes back and tries something else. I said, oh, well, okay. You know, but the desire, he had such a desire to be an artist. That whole energy was about him before I think he even realized it. And that he knew that there was something else involved. If you sing good and you move well and you can act, it's wonderful. But when you hit that spot, you know, when you hit that spot, it's like discovery. And to see that happen to him, and for him to see it happen to himself and to know when it happened, he then knew where he should grow from. And I think that's the most exciting thing about it, that, you know, it's nice to deal with a young person who is also teaching you, and for them to discover things. And he gives me an opportunity to know how to deal with other young people, you know, that might not quite get it. I said, okay, all right, but remember JJ, you know. But JJ he's the kind of energy that just, he's never really satisfied, but that energy kind of took over after you graduated from Juilliard, and you said, there's something else, there's something else, there's something else, you know. And the writing, always constantly writing and performing, freelancing, all kinds of things, which is so important to discover all those avenues that you have, you know what I mean? So,
JJ, do you remember? Because do you remember that moment? Because she said you were tiptoeing early on. Do you remember what flipped that switch?
He was busy tiptoeing.
Well, I think what it was that, you know, it was again, it was like the first time I'm being asked to be myself. And I lived in a home where, you know, I'm encouraged to always do that. I'm always encouraged to, you know, my parents always supported anything. I mean, I was going from sports to you know, random little things, and then, you know, we found acting. So I was always encouraged to follow what I wanted to. But, you know, when you get in those spaces, you know, sometimes you're asked to, how do I just, I don't want to put anything around it, but, you know, sometimes you have to just be an exaggerated version of yourself, I'll say. And this was the first time I was asked to just, no, you don't have to do all that. Just do the task the way you know. And that was, I want to say that was probably, you know, nerve-wracking to me at the time, you know, that probably the first time I was hearing for the first time. You know, my parents always said it, but I think I heard it for the first time when Mabel would say, you know, you're enough, you know, you're enough. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, it sort of slowly went away, but yeah, I think maybe that's what it was, man.
You know, the thing is, we always feel as though we have to do something else to make ourselves better, because we are so afraid of believing who we are is enough. You know, it certainly took me a very long time to learn that, you know. So, and the young people today, I think that they trusted a little bit more than my generation did, So we were always trying to be something else, trying to always be something else. But of course, if you don't have that which is strong or should be strong in your life, or image which you can really admire and understand, oh, okay, she looks like me, he looks like me, you don't make the connection. So you're constantly pulling from all directions and go through a lot of stuff you don't necessarily have to go through a lot of times, so but I'm just glad that we walked in each other's paths. So.
Yes, Lord. One of the greatest gifts. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and talking about having someone there who looks like you to teach you, was that one of the reasons you started TTE? What were some of the reasons behind you starting TTE?
Me. Yes. Okay. The thing was, I believe, I was getting older. The young people that I originally pulled from the community and tried to teach, and I'm talking about adults now, that pull from the churches and from the community centers and wherever, and they learned to understand what it was that Larry demanded and realize that we are demanding the same thing, and the beyond excellence quote that is always floating around, the Black rep. It's a truism, and they want to so much do it, but a lot of times they're afraid to go beyond what they're now dealing with. In other, they're afraid to go outside of Winston. They said, well, I said, well, yes, my mother also told me to make sure that I stay in college and get my degrees and so that I can have something to fall back on, And are you all having trouble hearing me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. To fall back on. So, and I find that was the problem with a lot of the people that were really very talented and didn't know how talented they were, the young people that are now mature young ladies and gentlemen that are stars here, divas that we created and given us a real problem. But anyway, what happened was, I said, there should be an extension of Black rep, And Larry and I always talked about young people, and he would go into, I think it was Hill, that he would go into the schools and teach young people. And I was at the School of the Arts. So you saw what was needed and what was missing in a theater company or theater repertory company that was so strong and you knew should be around for a very long time. So you see how you need to filter and make sure that it can continue to exist. So I said, well, that's something maybe I should do that Larry hasn't really been able to do. And so when they asked me to take over as artistic director, I said, artistic director, okay. But let me say, I'll give it a shot. But those were the things that I could bring to the table that I knew was important. And I thought that Larry would like to see, and that those are ways that we were walking on the same path. We believed in kind of the same things, and I said, well, okay, why don't we start a theater company that's for young people, and see, or at least train them and see if they are willing to give that energy and knowing what the necessities are, because I think one of the things that I wanted to bring to the teen theater was that you have to really commit, otherwise don't do it, because this profession is not one that you should take lightly or you can take lightly in order to gain what it is that you should be expecting of yourself, you know. So, okay, we took a chance. We saw that there were young people that kind of just came to, you know, to the table, and that was encouraging. So we had a beginning. And when you have a beginning, then you can make it grow. And so it got bigger and bigger. And my God, the talent that came to us that was raw, didn't know what it was, but they just knew they wanted to do something. They just wanted to show off and, you know, be themselves and have a good time doing it and having people to appreciate it. So that's basically what it was, knowing that this, you know, we had an extension now of Black rep, you know, as artists, you know, performing artists. So,
so what is it like for you now? I mean, I know Sadrina, who actually starred in Jealous Last Jam. We opened the last festival. Amazing talent. JJ's on Broadway. What is it like for you? Because you saw them, you know, you saw him tiptoeing. When I saw him on stage, he was doing anything but tiptoeing in New York.
Absolutely. You know, and the thing was, I said, when there was the lineup, when I saw him, it was, I don't know, it was a picture or something. Anyway, they were taking their bows. I said, look at him. He is the star of that show because of the way that he accepted his audience and say, receive me because I'm a D-boy. You know what I mean? It was really, you could tell that pride that had just, you know, come up, welled up and so that he could be proud of himself. And the young people, I mean, Sadrina had gone to Europe and toured Europe and did all kinds of stuff before she even, you know, before she even decided to settle. She would always call back, Miss Robinson, are you going to do this year? Can I come back and do it? Okay, well, yeah, well, I'll come back. I said, you can visit your mother. We'll do it during the holidays, whatever. So they had that kind of energy about wanting to be able to give back and to continue to be a part of Black rep, you know, even though they were not afraid to take the chance. Whereas I think a lot of the older artists in the company said, okay, they would go. I know, like Bethany, she went and toured with Esther Marrow for a couple of years, and Esther was like, wow, Bethany Heath, Mabel, you know, the thing is, she couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, Bethany was, she was doing, and Esther Marrow was Aunt Em in The Wiz on Broadway, and she's also a fantastic gospel singer. Meanwhile, what had happened, she developed a gospel company that toured Europe all the time, you know, as a performing artist group from New York. So they were always having auditions for gospel people. So I said, well, I've got some money I think I want you to look at, you know. And she went for a while, but unfortunately, or fortunate because we got her back, her dad was ill, so she had to come back home. And a lot of times, you know, when you are here in an environment for so long, it's hard for you to take that chance to go to a Chicago or to a New York or to LA if you don't have a great support system there. And I think that one of the things was there were a few of you that was there at the same time that you could kind of connect with each other, you know. You know, you, Sadrina, you all make friends so easily that it wasn't long that you realized there were other young people from different places that, hey, you guys go through the same things, you like each other, you know, and so your whole foundation started to kind of, you know, gather and get bigger. So you had no reason not to, but you were glad when you got home, huh?
Right.
To visit mom.
Yes.
You know, because the family is so close, you know, so yeah. But anyway, well, that's kind of why, Jackie, you know, being encouraged by watching what Larry did a lot of times in going into the different schools and saying, well, he talked to me about it. I said, well, I think they're going to call this a conflict of interest while I was still at the school. So I had retired from the School of the Arts. So I said, well, I can do it now. But continue that connection with the school so that I'll say, well, listen, I have a young person that is interested in doing this or doing that, and trying to make that connection with them. And so you keep, you don't burn the bridge. You keep that bridge because you knew that one of our young people would be able to go there sometime that will continue. I'm not one that holds on to say, no, you stay here, you stay here. Go elsewhere and find out what else you can learn, So I try not to be selfish with my children.
If Jackie, if I may for 1 second, I just want to. I every opportunity that I can, I like to always give flowers where they are due, and I just, it's incredible, Miss Mabel, to hear you, to hear just more backstory as to how you were making things happen, and that literally whether you knew it or not, by you making those choices to continue those bridges, to continue those relationships, so that at some point, one of us would latch on to something and we go. Just to even hear that School of the Arts, relationship that you had built even before you became artistic director, even before you decided to start the teen theater, I'm so grateful to you for that, and it continues to bless myself and my family. So I thank you so much for doing that work, and it continues to teach me to keep doing that, in my own work and in my life. So thank you.
And I see that in you, because when I was there and you would come in with the little cubicle and we would talk, I said, what? He's going to be a great person for the Black rep in his future. The fact that he was getting out there, you were performing and you were writing and everything else. I said, and this is home too. He will always be coming in and trying somehow to give back in a sense. And I've watched you do it. You know what I mean? But I'm also very glad that you are going through the whole process and completing it within yourself first before you can really, give of yourself as you need to, because you wouldn't want to give of yourself any less than what you have already gained, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
Well, Ms. Robinson,
I love you too.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you invited me. Yeah, I'm so glad you invited me. Because if you didn't, I think I would have been a little pissed. No, because JJ, that's pride, that's kind of the pride and joy. So it's always nice to be able to share these moments, these wonderful moments,
absolutely,
with the young peoples.
Yes,
Well, thank you.
And I talk to your mom too. So
yes.
It's good, So we smiled and we have a good time. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, always helping us.
Thank you, Miss Mabel.
Thank you.
Love to you.
Wait a minute.
I love her so much. Oh my God. So much, man.
A legend drops in your life. You hang out with her for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Jane Band. You ended up going to School of the Arts, if I'm not mistaken, high school, right? Did you go to that program?
Yeah, I went there for my senior year of high school. Yeah.
Okay. And from there, Juilliard.
Yeah. Whew. It's wild. Wild.
I mean, you're batting 1,000 on the training there, man. I mean, if you're gonna do it, I think you did it the right way. But What was that like? I mean, you don't just walk into Juilliard. So how did you end up there? What was the experience like?
We could literally just have this Zoom just to talk about that. So I'll try to be incredibly brief. I will really try to be brief. So if I get away, I'm okay with you guiding me back to the task. So Mabel would bring in actors from, she worked with Matt Bullock, who actually just recently passed. He was an incredible acting teacher at the North Carolina School of the Arts for the drama division. And he also was a Juilliard student. I want to say they probably, Mabel and Matt went to school around the same time, because they were also in school, I think, with Pina Bausch, who's also like a very, I think they were all in the same class. It was like a crazy class of amazing artists. But Matt would bring in actors of color to our sessions, and Matt would walk us through the exercises that they would do at the college, and they would show us, the projects that they were working on. Matt told Mabel about the high school program and said that I should audition for it. And so I auditioned and then got into that program. And basically the program is designed to prep you for college. They're like, you're going to school, like whether it's for artistic purposes or not, we're getting you into school. And so it was an intense year, basically, where my life, had a complete 180. And we trained, to audition for colleges and also to have our, academics ready for any sort of whatever situation, academically we were going to be in. I auditioned me and my mom flew to New York. I didn't even know what Juilliard was. Honestly, I had no idea what that school was. And it actually, again, it's one of those moments where I'm walking into something not knowing what I'm getting myself into. But I in a way was prepared, right, to walk into that room. But I think it helped that I didn't know what Juilliard was, because I think if I knew, I would have been freaking out, and I would have, But I went to New York, auditioned. I think the audition started at like 9 a.m. that morning, and I didn't leave until about midnight the next day. It was a long day. I think we got on a plane literally around like 5 that morning to come back. And I had school that I had to go back to. So it was like a crazy 2-day period. And basically, they took us through, I did my monologues maybe like 8 or 9 times within a day, and then you're waiting. I think I want to say something close to 750 people auditioned the day I auditioned. And I want to say about like something close to like 3,000 people auditioned that year. I mean, it grows every year. And then from there, they once you do that initial audition, they bring you back they break all those 3,000 people into 40. And then you go through like a whole weekend of auditions, and they put you through different situations, classroom situations, work with different teachers. They ask you to read a play before you come. They take you to see a play. They, you talk about those plays and all those things. And then from there, you find out if you're in the program. And I got into school, and again, I didn't know what I was getting myself into until I went to the lobby. I want to say like the first week that I was in school, and they have pictures of all the alumni. And that was when it clicked. And I remember being like, oh, I am in trouble. Oh, man. Just people from, Kevin Kline to Patti LuPone, to Stephen McKinley Henderson, to Anthony Mackie, who also was a part of the high school program at North Carolina School of the Arts, and then went to Juilliard. And even musically, like Miles Davis, Wynton Marsalis, again, dancers like Pina Bausch. So it's like, when I got there, I realized that it was just, this incredible space where a lot of great actors came and musicians, dancers came before me. It was a crazy time. It was a crazy 4 years of my life. An incredible culture shock. I'm like, I'm country through and through. And so it was the high school program prepped me for that. It wasn't an incredible culture shock. I was kind of eased into it, but it definitely was a different environment that I was ever in. I mean, I'm in class with people who decided to act, but like was getting full rides to study like science, right? To people who were, got into other Ivy Leagues for things that were not acting, but decided, so, you're in class with those kind of people. We were the first class to have an MFA program. So, we were sort of the guinea pigs and figuring out what, now the program looks like. And those were very formative years for me. I learned so much about myself, as you do, right, in college. But I think, when you're training as an actor, all you're asked to do is to just unpack, who you are, so that you can allow other things and other characters and, things to flow through you. Yeah, man, it was beautiful, and it was like home, right? Like you're learning how to do, the work of an actor, right? At home, you're learning how to, your parents are teaching you the importance of why you need to wash dishes and take out the trash and, develop those sort of habits, right? So that when you get out into the world, you can, you won't just have to worry about those things, right? It'll be sort of second nature. And they would, teach you the value of relationship and, all those things. And you're learning, things about your habits, your voice, right? Your body. You're learning about the world. You're reading texts that there's, things I would have never thought to read, right? And you're with people. I mean, every person in my class had an incredible story as to how they got into that room, right? And so you're in the trenches every day, right, with these people. We'd have rehearsals in class 6 days a week, and we'd have something from 13 to sometimes 15-hour days, where you're starting at 9 and you don't get out of rehearsal until about 11. You're just like, you're just going. It was great. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it's great.
It sounds like this incredible journey, but landing in the right places for training each way. It sounds like it was very rough, a lot of work. And, for any young actors out there watching, after all of that work, School of the Arts, that rigorous audition process, the 4 years of 15-hour days, 6 days, 7 days a week, I know that probably still didn't prepare you for once you step out of those doors into the real world of acting in New York.
It did help. Let me say that, right? Like there are incredible benefits, and a certain privilege that does come with, with coming from a school like Juilliard. I that is absolutely true for me, and for a lot of people that come from those spaces. But there are things that, it can't prepare you for it, and that's just, that's any school, that's any, even outside of acting. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right. Like there are just things that life and where life intersects with art and the business of art. There's certain things you just can't learn until you're out there in those streets.
And I should say, like, the training you had sounds perfect. I mean, and it sounds, you needed it all to give you an idea of how rough it is. That's really, you had an idea of what you were walking into.
Sure.
You knew it was going to require those 15-hour days. So it's so important for young actors to know, like, this is no walk in the park. I mean, you needed all of that work. All of those years were preparing you to step into that real world. What was that like? What was once you graduated and coming from Juilliard, that is a huge advantage, connections-wise in the city, who they were able to put you in front of, agent-wise, casting director-wise. I mean, you've got all these benefits, but it's still, everybody's in New York. So what, did you know, like when you walked out, I'm doing this for the rest of my life, I'm committed to it, and where did you start?
Yeah, so I love that. So I definitely, coming out of school, every actor will tell you, you're like, I'm gonna be the next Denzel, or like I'm gonna, that was sort of like my thing, like I need to get this role, I want to like audition. I'm auditioning for everything, even if I'm not right for this role, I'm sort of, trying to be an animal, in that way, wanting to be successful. And again, you're coming from a school where, it seems their success rate is just like, it's wild, right? So I'm sort of, I sort of entered the business with that, and I started to understand, like anything, time is an irrelevant factor, right? Like, sometimes you can come out, and some people do, they come out and they land those roles even before they leave school. That can happen, right? And then for some, it doesn't happen until they're, in the latter part of their lives, you know what I mean? And so I think over time, I started to realize that, and I started to realize why, even in the training program, they encourage you to, dig into what your other hobbies were, right? Dig into what your other interests were, even especially the things that are outside of the arts. I loved to teach. I worked with an organization called Art. It was an outreach program called Art Reach that was a part of Juilliard, and we'd go every year to New Orleans and we'd teach for a week. And we'd also build a house with Habitat for Humanities. And like that stuff, I love that because I grew up doing outreach in church, and so I learned that all of those experiences would help me to really figure out what my specific journey would be outside of school. Because yes, it is true, I still have those desires to be in a TV show, right? To be a series regular on a show, to be in films, and to be obviously in work that's like that changes, that is influential, for lack of better words. So yeah, school definitely prepared me for what would be those rehearsals where you're having to, again, rehearse from 9 a.m, and then your tech doesn't end until about midnight, right? And then sometimes you need to have a 12-hour turnaround, and it prepared me in that way. It prepared me to be able to step into any sort of audition situation, right? And to be able to trust that, okay, I know I've been in this situation before in school. I can just trust that, this is going to happen. And I think too, like even things outside of the arts, being able to step into a classroom, being able to step into a nursing home or wherever, and being able to just be in that space authentically. School definitely prepares for that. Yeah.
Is that how you paid the bills? Were you teaching once you got out?
Man, I was teaching. I was doing little gigs. I was catering. It's funny, like I was very, very, very blessed that right before I graduated, I got to do a short film with Christine Turner, who is like one of my favorite directors. She wrote a short film called Hold On, and I got to work with Beth Ann Hardison in this film. And so I was able to like kind of have something right after, sort of leading out. And then I was able to do a play in DC with the DC Shakespeare Theater with Michael Kahn and all those folks out there. And then I was able to do...
Was Inga Ballard in that show?
Inga was in that show. I love Inga. Oh my
Inga
God.
is actually our Dr. Maya Angelou in the world premiere of Phenomenal Woman. She's going to be playing Dr. Angelou. So when I saw that, I was very excited. Yes. So Inga will be here in Winston-Salem bringing Dr. Angelou to life.
See her. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad she's a part of the Black Rep family now. That's amazing.
And that was Romeo and Juliet, right?
Romeo and Juliet, yeah. So she played the nurse. She was incredible. I would sit off stage and watch her all the time. All the time. She was coming with that fire. It was incredible. It was really incredible. But after that, I did a play in Utah with Timothy Douglas, the Fences out there. And then there was like a 5-month period before Hamilton. I got Hamilton where I applied for like 11 jobs, man, was like not getting anything, and ended up doing a catering, a little bit of catering, and ended up
Every actor has catering on their resume.
Oh yeah.
Every actor has catering on their resume. So
and again, what was great was that, you know, my family has a restaurant here in Winston, and before we became a restaurant, we had a catering business. So that stuff was, you know, in a way really second nature. So it was that was a training for me to prepare for that growing up. But yeah, man, all different little odd jobs, you know, teaching here and there. And, you know, my friends who were musicians in school were, you know, it was their time, you know, putting out their projects, and they need singers on the thing. And so I'd work with my, you know, one of my friends, Samora, you know, things like that. Yeah, just all little odd things before, you know, Hamilton came. And yeah, the rest was sort of.
And of course, that's, you get a call to audition for Hamilton.
It was wild.
What's that like?
So it's interesting. I auditioned for Hamilton over the course of a year, and I auditioned about 18 times over the course of this year. Yeah, it was insane. They really do vet their actors. But before I graduated, again, one of the privileges that come with being a Juilliard student is they get to bring really cool people in to have conversations with us about what the industry will be like once we get out. And so we had an opportunity to have like a one-on-one session with Bernie Telsey. You know, the guy, I mean, you know, that's like, they are the Walmart of casting, you know, like they run the show. Every show cast through them. And so we had to have a conversation with this guy. And he asked me in my one-on-one session, he was like, yo, I had heard of Hamilton, but, you know, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm right for that, right? And he goes, have you auditioned for Hamilton yet? And I was like, no, I haven't auditioned. It's like, oh yeah, you should reach out to Bethany and we should get you in. I was like, okay, cool. So I went by literally the next day. I typed up a letter to her, you know, expressing, hey, I think, you know, I might be right for this show. I'd love to audition. I went there and I dropped off the letter, dropped off my resume and headshot, and got a call maybe like that next week. And I auditioned. I didn't hear anything back until I was maybe in like the second month of rehearsal for Romeo and Juliet in DC. And so I would take a bus to go do my first audition in front of the casting and everybody. And then I'd go back, and then I'd go back to New York to audition again. And then, you know, was sort of doing that about 3 or 4 times. I had to fly back out from Utah when I was doing the play out there to audition again. And then when I came back, auditioned a bunch before getting the job. Yeah.
When did you book the play, and where was your first production?
So I booked the play the summer, or at least right before the summer of 2017. So yeah, about a year after I graduated. And I was sent to the Chicago company. You know, Hamilton's like the Army, you know, I mean, we have like different little camps now. And they deployed me out to Chicago, where I was a principal standby. So basically my job was to cover at the time. Oh no, that's not true. I totally mixing up my story. So I was hired to be in the ensemble, but I had to cover some principal roles. So there's 6 ensemble roles on stage, and I was playing what they call man 5. So it's man 1 through 6. I was man 5. He's sort of he's not really a dancer. He does some dancing, but mostly he's there to support the singing, and he has a couple like featured speaking roles in the play. So yeah, I started out as that, and then, you know, I would go on Sundays for Hamilton, and every now and then I'd go on for Burr, and every now and then I'd go on for the King. And that was sort of my job for about, I want to say, a year and a half. And then I want to say about 6 months. And then I became a off stage standby, where I wasn't doing man 5 every day. I was just covering Hamilton, Burr, and the King. And I did that for about another year and a half. And then I went to New York in last August, where I covered 4 more roles. 3 more roles. So I covered 6 roles now.
So you were covering 6 roles in the biggest show in the world.
Yes, I would.
To go on.
It's really wild, man. Like, yes, I'm still like, what am I doing? Yeah, it's wild.
What was that week like? I mean, I can't even imagine. So you don't know how much advance notice would you know when you were going on?
I mean, sometimes I was very lucky that it wasn't like too crazy of a situation, but like there was one time where, you know, they were like, hey, it was maybe like the closest was maybe like 10 minutes before the show started. You know, sometimes it's like during the show you can get a call, you know, towards the end of the show, you know, or at intermission. It can be really at any point. But I think the scariest time they were like, hey, yeah, you're gonna be on for Hamilton in 10 minutes, you know. And you go to work, you know, waiting for something. Unfortunately, like waiting, you know, you're there to wait until if something happens. But I think at that point I was such in a routine of going backstage and reading my book and playing a couple games of chess, you know. And they were like, yeah, you're on. So yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild. I am always, you know, always have to be on my toes all the time. So yeah. What was
it like in New York? Mm-hmm. How much notice did you have the first time you went on as Hamilton?
So, mind you, I had been doing the role of Hamilton at that point for about 2 years. And I think that was the first role that I ended up going on for. Yeah. And I had planned on going on a Sunday. And I think one of the guy that was our Hamilton at the time needed to call out for the matinee show for, I don't know what was going on, but they called me that morning. And luckily I was like up early and I was like, you know, just going over, you know, this new role that I was learning, you know, Lafayette Jefferson. I wasn't even really focused on Hamilton at that point, but they called and said, hey, I know you're supposed to go on tomorrow, but like, can you go on today? And then they were like, actually, you're going to go on today. So be ready when you get to the theater. And, you know, the turnaround. No pressure, right? And it's funny, right before, we talked about nerves earlier, man. I will never forget that moment, right? I was sort of being pushed before I was really prepping to be ready. And I remember being so nervous. I was like, yo, dude, you know you're about to like have your Broadway debut right now, right? Like, I mean, I'm saying that to myself. I'm like, yo, I'm tripping. Yo, what the world is this again? Oh my God, like Lin-Manuel Miranda was in this costume and like was on the stage, was saying his words and you know, like all these incredible people, you know, and I was like, I remember freaking out. And then I had this moment right before I went on. It was like, yo, you've been doing this for 2 years. You know what you're doing. Go do your job. And then we'll see each other when this is all over. Yeah, man,
I think that's a really important lesson for kids, though. You were ready.
Yeah.
When that Broadway debut came, you were ready. You had put in the work. So you were able to conquer those nerves and use them to give. I mean, what I saw was incredible. I saw you as Hamilton. And it was the first time I'd seen the show since the original production, the original cast. I saw it maybe 2 months after it opened on Broadway.
Oh, word.
With Lin-Manuel. And then I saw you. And you were incredible. So we've got some clips. It's not the best quality, but I just want everybody who didn't get a chance to get to New York to see JJ take a look at our former TTE member lighting the stage on fire.
Oh, man.
The candle cold in the pot, put up the eyes, the guys, and put us all in one spot. Robbing a spot of convention, a wisdom, like it or not. A bunch of revolutionaries, you name me mission abolitionist. Give me your position, show me where the ammunition is. Oh, am I talking too loud? Sometimes I get overexcited, cause you know I never had a group of men before. I promise that I'll make y'all proud. Let's get this guy in front of a crowd. Are you ready? How do you not get it? If we're aggressive and competitive, the union gets some boost. You'd rather give it a sedative, a civic lesson from a slaver. Hey, neighbor, your debts are paid because you don't pay for labor. We plant seeds in the South, we create it. You keep ranting, we know who's really doing the planting. See, the moment is saying, it's either that or we that bitches end up a bayonet. The cold word is Rochambeau. Give me a Rochambeau. Love you, hold it down, go man, go. So the American experiment begins. My friends all scattered to the winds. yours is in South Carolina. Redefining great. We will never be free until we end slavery. When we finally got the British away, Lafayette is there waiting and just to be great. How did we know that this plan would work? We had a spy on the inside. That's right, Hercules is all again. Crazy enough for me to book passage on a trip that was New York bound. I wrote my way out of hell. I wrote my way to revolution. I was louder than that crack in the bell. I wrote Eliza, love letters until she fell. I wrote about the Constitution and defended it well. And in the face of ignorance and resistance, I would fight into systems into existence. And with my prayers to God, woke up with indifference. I picked up a pen. I wrote my own deliverance. In the eye of a hurricane, there is quiet. Just a moment.
Man. Man.
You know, 6 of those roles, for everyone who was watching, you could see this is a pretty demanding show. It's not like a couple of lines here or there. And you knew 6 of those roles. Again, the performance was amazing.
Thank you.
You went on, you were announced as the leading man. How long was that run for you?
Oh man, it wasn't too long. I did it for, I want to say, about 2 months, or a little under 2 months. I was able to be Hamilton right before, actually, maybe 2 weeks before COVID took over. Yeah, I was doing that for about 2 months.
The kid we saw with the basketball at the top of this event in his living room for 2 months, took a bow as the leading man in literally the biggest show in the world in New York City.
Man.
What's that like?
It's wild, man. It's, it's just, I don't know. I've had obviously a lot of time to reflect on that, which has been such a blessing, because I just didn't have time to really just like sit and be like, yo, what? Like, did you realize this is happening? I don't know, man. I really don't have. I don't know if I can be really articulate right now, because I'm still, I'm still floored by it. I'm just, it's. I love doing the thing, and when I really look back at what I've done so far, I really see that it really wasn't, it had nothing to do with me, but really about like the people that were around me, that I got so blessed, Jackie. I can't express that enough. When I really think about it, the people that were just always around at the right time, to say the right thing, or to talk to my mom, whatever, right? Like I'm so blessed, and that really, I have to credit that to any success that I have now, have had, or will have in the future. It's wild, man. It's wild. I love that one day I can tell, my children, yo, your dad played Hamilton in Hamilton, right?
It's a story that the list of people who can do what I just described is so small. To step on stage and literally, unquestionably, the biggest show in the world on Broadway as a leading man, less than 0.5% of the actors who have ever called themselves an actor can say that. So I understand your loss of words. Let me ask you this. How's mom doing?
Mom is good, man. She's good. Man, it's been great. It's been great being back home, man. I needed that loving, man. I didn't even realize I needed it that bad. She's been feeding me well, But she's good, man. She's good. She's it's been great being home, and I'm just gonna brag on her for a second, if that's okay. Dude, my mom is literally, how they say, the Black woman is the backbone of America, right? Or really of the world. Like, that's my mother, right? Like, she is truly, it's been great to watch her in this time. You know, now she's a full-time business owner for 2 businesses. And to see her fully step into that position and to really handle things like a boss, you know, I'm watching her day-to-day operation, and she is thriving. And she deals with very difficult, you know, situations so well. And it's been so great to watch that, even just to remind me, like, okay, you got some of that in you. So like, trust that, you know, when things happen. But she's great, man. She's, you know, she looking young, you know, it's wild. I don't know how she's doing it. You know, every time we go somewhere, they're like, this your sister? Like, no, that's my mama. She's good, man. She's good.
She must be so incredibly proud.
Yeah. Yeah. She's always like, you know, JJ in town. He's here. You're like, Lord Jesus. I love that. I love that I can, you know, can give her that, you know. It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
So you've been doing the show since 2017 up until, you know, when the world stopped spinning a couple of months ago, 2020. That's 3 years.
Yeah.
2 of those years in Chicago, then a year, you know, about 6 months in New York, 8 months in New York. You're doing 6 roles. Some days you're not going on, some days you're going on. So you've been on the road a lot, been hanging around with actors. What do you guys do? Like, what do you kill time when you're in Chicago and you're not at home? And I'm asking you, I'm actually setting you up. So I'm not even going to ask you, you know, I'm just going to jump to where I'm going.
Okay.
We found a little clip of how you spent some of your downtime. And it's pretty entertaining. So let's take a look at JJ in his downtime on the road.
Oh, man.
Sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la. Forget your trouble, happy day. Come on, get happy. Are here again. You better change. Again. Shout hallelujah. So let's sing a song. Come on, get happy. Cheer again. Get ready. Happy days for the judgment day. The sun is shining together. Come on, get happy. Shout it now. There's no one who can doubt it now. Shout hallelujah. So let's tell the world. Come on, get happy about it now. We're going to the promised land. We're heading across the river. Soon your cares will be gone. There will be no more from now on. From now on, happy days are here again. Those happy days are here again. Happy days are here again. Those happy days are here again. Sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la. Come on, get happy.
Man. Wow.
So we're back.
Threw it back, man.
I found that clip and I loved it because it showed the joy of an artist's life. Like, it can be rough on the road, but you guys, I mean, you were having just as much fun in the living room as you had on stage in front of thousands of people. And that's the beauty of an artist's life. First, let's give some props to your who was on screen with you there, who was singing, because they were
oh my God. Okay, so yeah, so they're really good friends of mine. Sariah Williams, who was in Hamilton with me. I mean, this dude is like musical theater royalty. The guy is like incredible. Obviously, you heard his voice. He's got a golden voice. And then my homie Peter Ha, who is probably one of the greatest guitarists I've ever heard in my life. And that's what, you know, like me and my little cousin were like, no cap. You know, it's like that dude is incredible. Yeah, man. And it was actually Sherrod's idea. You know, he was leaving the show at the time and wanted to put something together. And I'm glad he did. That's a musical theater, I think a mashup of two musical theater songs that from old shows. And yeah, man, that was wow. I forgot about that one too. That was great. That's great watching it.
Well, JJ, what's next? I mean, I know that question is a question mark for a lot of people right now because we don't know, again, when the world will start spinning. But if we had not been interrupted, if everything went back tomorrow, would you be going back to Hamilton? How long would you be in Hamilton? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, well, let's start with that. So if you know, we were still, you know, the world was going as according to plan as it was before, I would be with the show through about December. Probably would be there for another couple months and maybe, you know, move to another project. You know, I'm always auditioning for things and especially more film and television things. Yeah, so
you did an episode of The Child, right?
I am. I'm in season 2.
Episode of The Child?
Yeah, season 2, episode 6. 5 or 6. I should know that, but I don't. So it's one of those. Yeah. So I would be doing that, and you know, still, you know, even while we are blessed to have a job, you know, we're still grinding it out. But now that things are incredibly different, and our industry looks different, and you know what our day-to-day looks like is different. My best friends actually. From home, we're working on a couple of projects that are basically centered around telling stories of incredible people that live in our community. So sort of doing that work, and you know, I have a cousin. His name is Terrence, and he is Terrence Hawkins, and he's doing incredible work in this city, and in terms of things that are happening in our political climate locally. He's doing incredible work. So like following him, you know, that's sort of what's happening, and figuring out ways I can be, you know, use my skill set to be supportive in that way. That's sort of, you know, what's next and what's happening. So yeah, just I'm finding ways to be creative in a way that is both fulfilling and in a way that is both also helping create space for other people. So yeah, that's sort of like, what's next. Say that one more time.
Bringing it home, like Ensemble referenced. Bringing it home.
Always.
A question I'd like to ask you, because you kids, young actors see you and they see infinite possibilities. What would you tell a young actor who is stepping into that room the first time?
I tell them what my dad told me in Chicago one night. I called my dad and I was like, "Dad, yo, like, I don't know what to do." You know, I had talked to him in a couple months, and so I you know, it was one of those moments where I was truly like, I don't know what to do. You know, I asked him, I said, "What would you tell your?" I want to say I was like 25 at the time. I was like, "What would you tell your 25-year-old self?" He said, "Honestly, I tell myself to just fall into it. Just fall into it and see what happens." And I feel like, even with the stories Ms. Mabel was telling earlier, that's always been sort of a thing for me where I can get too heady sometimes about it. And it's about the task then has to become just falling into it and trying it. So I think that's something I would tell young actors is like, try it, try something, make a choice, right? Like that's really the work that we have to do on stage and off stage, and they all feed each other. So in your life, right? Like try something, right? Sometimes it can be a difficult conversation. Sometimes it can be a really hard skill, right? Or maybe read that book, right? Maybe try taking that class, that course, or whatever. I think I'd say that. I think I'd say like fall into something, just fall into it and let it guide you, because it always, it does. Life, if you fall into it, it'll show you what you need to do.
Well, you put in a lot of hard work. It's paying dividends. I know all of Winston-Salem is incredibly proud of you. You've accomplished so much so quickly, but we know there's more to come. Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is like the best possible way we could close out this series, is to shine the spotlight on one of our own. So we're so glad that you were able to join us. And hey, man, we're watching. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I said to you earlier, but I want to say it publicly, man. Our city is incredibly blessed to have you in the position that you're in, and with the influence that you have, and what you've been, feeding the city, man. You've been teaching us how to ask new questions and think about art in a new way. And so I am glad that I can, again, even just do this and be helpful in my own little way, and be a part of that with you, man. So thank you for the work that you do and are continuing to do. And Winston, we're blessed. We're blessed to have you. So thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us. This was our final Marvtastic Monday. It's the end of the Holy Ground Spotlight series, but it's not the end of NC Black Reps season. We've got some incredibly exciting announcements coming up regarding Phenomenal Woman, Maya Angelou, regarding our upcoming season. Please follow us on social media. You can go to ncblackrep.org for information on all upcoming events and to support the company. Thank you again for tuning in tonight. Good night.